Okay, so this is the bouncer analogy of the way that we look at thoughts and manage thoughts. And to get a really good understanding of this, I wanted to just run through a key couple of points. One of the takeaways is that we're constantly thinking. You might notice it yourself, and from the moment you wake up till the moment you lay down at night, you're thinking. So much so we have about 70,000 thoughts every day. Okay, what does that mean? It means that it's pretty intense. It's that whether you know it or not, there's a churning of thoughts that are cycling through and repeating all day long. And why is that important to know? Is that if you're not aware of it, then it's going on almost invisibly in the background. And if it's going on, you're a passenger to what's going on rather than experiencing life in the present moment. So you're either lost in thought or in the present moment. We're oblivious to this constant thinking. And there's so much so that we're thinking that we're leading normal lives, whereas in fact we're living a life where most of the time we're in this state, the zombie state, where we're physically there, but what's actually going on in the mind doesn't match what's actually going on physically. And most of these thoughts are either negative or unwanted. And by that I mean, if we look back at that thought, look at the last 5 minutes and say, hey, look, you thought of this, this and that, and we listed them out, and I said, well, how much of those thoughts did you actually want to think about? It would probably be the majority of them that you didn't want to think about. And we can explore that a bit later on. And finally, before we get into this analogy, it's that, this constant negative thinking or this constant thinking is actually an evolutionary gift. Our ancestors always had to be on the lookout for danger. Almost, at an OCD level, just like constantly looking out for danger. Because if they didn't, then, is that a spider, or is that a shadow, or is that a tiger, or then your genes would effectively be wiped out. Right? There wasn't hospitals with antiseptics, antibiotics to help all that. So just think about that when you're having these negative thoughts. Maybe just remove a little bit of the blame. This is actually, this negative thinking and this always in this survival mode is actually very normal. Okay, so when we can try and normalize it a little bit, then it helps with the learning and it helps with the progress. So when we said the bouncer analogy, so think of thoughts as a big queue outside of a nightclub lining up. Right now, whether you like it or not, they're going to line up, they're going to show up. Okay, this is out of your control. Where you have the control is when they get to the door and say, hey, we would like to come into this nightclub in your mind. The fact that you can see them lining up is the first key thing. Like I mentioned earlier on, most people don't even know that there's this queue of thoughts trying to get into your mind, into your mental nightclub. And so they're just coming in. They're just coming in willy-nilly all day long. What we're saying is that now we're going to empower ourselves to actually stand, to man the gate, to be the bouncer. And then when a thought arises, when it comes to the door, we can then take that space and say, well, do I want to actually let you in or not? All right. Now, some of the people in the line could be big and scary. Some of them are not, are not as scary. And say, for example, you have to go shopping later on, and it's a thought that pops up. The milk's gone off. I have to go later on to the shops. Okay, so when that thought arises, it comes to the front of the nightclub. It's in the queue, and we can say to it with kindness, right now, I'm watching a Netflix movie, or right now I'm having dinner with my family. I don't want to think about that, but I can't stop that initial thought from arising. So the guy comes to the thought arises at the front of the line. I see you. It distracts me momentarily, but now I'm training myself that, I can make the decision. No, I want to return to the conversation I was just having with my children. So in that moment, I'm going to take a breath, bring my full attention back to the sensation of it, or to your anchor, the most noticeable part of that inhale, exhale. And that's another video you can watch, the finding your anchor. And then that thought, like a soap bubble, will disappear. Now the next person will then come, that's in the line, will then come. And this line of people are going to keep coming on. Now if there's a big scary person in the line that comes up, and, obviously a bounce on this, how big you are and how strong you are and how practiced you are will affect your ability to deal with the thoughts as they appear at the front of the line. Now, the bigger, more scary thoughts, like a presentation that you have to deliver in front of 50 people, or a forecast meeting with your boss, or a public event where you need to put yourself out there and outside your comfort zone. Those are usually a lot harder for you when they arise. A, for you to notice them, but B, for you to say, you know what, I don't want to think of this right now. A lot of times there's stuff that we don't want to think about, but we feel like we're trapped and we can't escape it. Well, the reason why we can't is because we haven't practiced it. We haven't practiced what it's like to notice a thought arise and then to consciously and proactively say, all right, I see you, but now I'm going to bring it back to my breath or to my anchor or to the present.